I get asked a lot, through all these trainings and people reaching out to me, how can government contractors meet federal buyers? How can I reach out, et cetera? And it really comes down to picking up the phone. Whole point of today's training, right? But the way government contractors can meet federal buyers is to just start picking up the phone and calling them. There's a little bit of email that you might be able to do, et cetera. We're not spamming, but we're just picking up the phone and calling the people we want to call or that we want to have meetings with, right? There's no magic in here. I always say that I'm not bringing a silver bullet or magic. It's just good old-fashioned hard work. Sales in the federal market for government contractors, it's not about charisma. It's not about how well your personality, we can go off and we golf together and do all these things. It's not a transactional activity where, you give me $5 and I give you this cup kind of thing. That's transactional. It is a solution. It's a discussion. Sales in the federal market for government contractors is a discussion between you and your customer, your potential customer, aligning problems and their goals, et cetera, to your solutions. That's all sales is when you really boil it down. But it begins with that phone call. That phone call we're calling today cold calling leads to the discussions that allows you to align your problems or their problems with your solutions. And that's the direction we want to go. Government contractors, they just need to get in the door, right? You just need to get in the door and have the conversations with your customers. And when you do, you're going to start finding out a lot more about that customer and their needs. And so that's the whole point of today's training on cold calling federal buyers. I'm going to talk today about how to make cold calls to federal buyers. This is a piggyback on a lot of other training I've done. And so on my LinkedIn profile, in the very top, in the featured section, you'll see an article that I put in there that is our previous trainings. And you can go find 400 of them. I'll reference them today, but I have many trainings that you can go in that piggyback on this topic. Today, I'm going to be talking about, most importantly, how cold calls help you achieve your goals. Achieving those goals begins with that first knock on the door, right? I'm an old vacuum cleaner sales guy. I used to sell vacuum cleaners door to door. Now I literally just have to pick up the phone and call somebody, and that's the virtual knock, right? But achieving those goals begins with that first knock. And then the second thing I'm going to cover down on is I really want you to understand how cold calling is about numbers. Sales is about numbers. But if you understand the numbers, the effort that goes into reaching out and trying to set up meetings, the meetings are the result of your cold call effort. If you understand that effort, if you understand your numbers, you're going to be able to have much more success and much more satisfaction day to day. And the last thing I want to give you is just some suggestions on how to make the cold calls, talking about the process. This in particular, I've got multiple other trainings on as well, but I'll try to cover down a little bit on the process and a script and a template. By the way, I am sick, so I'm going to try to remember to drink water so I don't lose my momentum in my voice, but we're off to the races. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market after I got out of the Army as a small business government contractor, same as you probably, right? And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And that's what I want for you. That's the whole idea of today's training, is to begin to get you down that path of having repeatable, predictable results around cold calling and meetings. If you haven't done so already, do me a favor and subscribe to our newsletter, the Government Contracting Success Newsletter. It's the largest one out there on LinkedIn, bringing you sales tips and government insight. We'll share strategic plans. We'll share things like how to make cold calls, how to sit there and align your 5-year strategy to your 1-year activities, all sorts of good stuff in the newsletter. So make sure you subscribe to that. And then the last thing is, we had over 150 people register for today's training. We've got over 200 between LinkedIn and YouTube live right now. And so first, thank you very much. When you sit there and register for the training, you're giving my team a little thank you, right? We've got people on the call right now who are supporting you in the chat and afterwards. And when you register, that's just a thank you to us that we appreciate. The other thing, which is even equally as important to us, is when you register, LinkedIn says, well, there's 150 people who registered. Let me push this out to more people so that we build our network. Of course, I want to have more people hearing my training, but I also love the idea of bringing more people in so that you start building your network with new people, perhaps you didn't know yesterday. So thank you very much for registering. If you haven't done so already, we got 3 more trainings lined up this week. A lot of good training. And so please go into LinkedIn and just register when you get a chance. And maybe somebody will drop into the chat the link to tomorrow's training. Okay, so let's talk about achieving your goals and how that begins with a knock, that cold call, right? When you make cold calls and when you can make cold calls, you're going to get meetings. And meetings are going to lead to relationships. And those relationships are going to lead to you hearing about opportunities, what I call slam dunk opportunities. Because you knocked on a door that got you a meeting that led to that relationship, you're going to hear about what we call winning proposals, or winning opportunities, for those opportunities you heard about, right? And when you start hearing about opportunities, you can write winning proposals out there. When you write enough winning proposals, you're going to start winning contracts and hitting your sales goals, all because you learn how to make cold calls, right? And this is really important to me, is that the reason we're talking today about how to make cold calls to federal buyers is because that's literally the first step to winning contracts, is beginning to reach out and hearing about opportunities, discussing opportunities, etc. If you repeat this process over and over again, knocking on doors and building relationships, having meetings that build relationships, you're going to eventually get to this stage where you graduate from small to large. That's a very realistic thing. It takes work, but it all begins because you learned how to make a cold call. A cold call leads to a meeting, right? A meeting leads to a relationship. Relationship leads to opportunities. Opportunities allow you to write proposals. Proposals are what allow you to start winning sales. And when you start winning, you can win more and you strengthen those relationships. You gain new relationships. It is a very legitimate path forward to growth when you just start doing the right thing over and over again, right? This is why we say government contracting, it's not a secret. It's a process, and that's what we're going to really drive down into today. I wanted to just help you understand this idea of the numbers. When you reach out to people, when you try to do sales, etc., there's this line we say in sales: some will, some won't, so what? The idea is some people will do what you want, schedule a meeting, buy your products, etc., and some won't do that, right? They won't schedule a meeting with you. They won't get back to you. They won't buy your products. And the idea of so what is focus on your outreach and focus on the people who will. Don't focus on the won'ts. The people who won't, they just have to exist. Sales is about yes and no. And you have to have no's to get yeses. That's just how life works. You have to have no's to get yeses, and that's how sales works. And so this bell curve that you're looking at, this is a really good bell curve. If you look at it, it's 100%. And so imagine we're calling 100 people. When you call 100 people, there's some predictability amount around how many people are going to get back to you. And so I just want to walk through this scenario really quick. So we have innovators represent 2.5% of the population. And if I can, for 1 second, use the iPhone, like a new iPhone coming out as our example, if Apple says we're coming out with a new iPhone, it's going to be released on midnight Sunday night and available. So starting Monday, sales at midnight Monday, right? 2.5% of the population are going to be sleeping in their tents outside of the Apple store, waiting in line for that. I gotta have the newest iPhone, not just the newest one, but I gotta have it at midnight when it first launches. It's like, all right, crazy. And sometimes I'm the crazy one, and iPhones I'm not. And then there's early adopters. These are 13.5% of the population that's going to buy an iPhone. These early adopters definitely are going to get a new iPhone. My wife is one of those. But they're like, I'm going to get a good night's sleep, wake up, maybe get a coffee, and they'll show up at 9 o'clock at a reasonable time in the morning. But they know they're going to buy it. And so 16% of the population pretty much are guaranteed yes, if you will, on the Apple iPhone. And then you got this early majority, this 34%. These people like the iPhone. They want to get the new one, but they're not in a hurry. So they'll wait for a birthday or a Christmas, or they'll wait for 2 or 3 months to see what all the innovators and early adopters learn about the new iPhone. Was there a bug in there that Apple's going to have to fix, et cetera? So they're going to buy it. They like it. They're a yes, but they want to wait to see what the innovators and early adopters do. And then the late majority are the ones who aren't going to buy an iPhone. They have no interest really in the iPhone beyond the fact that they own an iPhone, and they'll get another one if they can get it as part of their renewal when they renew their phone plan, right? Hey, you're going to get another 3-year plan or something. You can get the newest iPhone. All right, I'll take it. But that's when they do it. They're not going out to get it. They're not doing anything to get it. And then I represent the laggards on the iPhone example. The laggards are never getting the newest iPhone, and we hate the fact that there's new iPhones. So if you know the iPhone at all, I held on to the 5S for as long as I could, and when it completely died, it turned out they were still selling it. So I went and bought a 5 while the 12s were out. I finally had to get rid of my 5 when Apple discontinued everything with it. I was like, all right, I'll get something else. And so those are laggards. In every aspect of life, it doesn't matter where you're at, people are going to be innovators or laggards or somewhere in between, depending on it. And we're not always laggards. The person who's a laggard on an iPhone is not going to be a laggard on vacation ideas or something, whatever, right? And so bring this back to sales. If you understand the numbers, if you reach out to 100 government buyers, federal buyers, then you're going to sit there and find that 16% of them, or 16 out of 100 people, are going to take your call and they will schedule a meeting with you. Some will. The 34% will give you a little bit of delays. They might sit there and what I like to say is don't even bother calling the majority. Get the early adopters to give you an introduction. If you can get that to happen, and I'll talk about that in a minute, then you're right into the early majority, and now you've got the 50%. The biggest part of this lesson out of the bell curve that I want you to understand is do not at all try to talk to the late majority or laggards. If you're trying to get into a particular agency, 50% of the people you're going to try to call are laggards and late majority. They don't want to talk to you. And so you'll just be spending your time. I was talking to a customer on Friday, and he was talking about how, he was slowing up on making some cold calls because he's really trying to role play or prepare how to deal with the customer. Like when he calls and tries to schedule a meeting, and he has to talk about how what he does is valuable to what the other person does. You don't want that. You want to find people who already believe what you believe. In this case, the innovators and early adopters are people who value the contribution of small business industry to government's mission. And so you want to be calling those ones. I got another customer just right before this call who shot out an email. Hey, got another meeting with such and such person. It's like perfect. They've been reaching out, right? We literally could be talking about all the people who aren't getting back to us. But these other ones, the person who got back to them, I got the copy of the email. The person who got back to them said, hey, I'm open to a meeting. Here's 4 times that will any of these work for you? I loved it because I'm always telling industry to tell government, hey, here's 2 days, 2 different times on each day. Would that work? And here was the federal buyer saying the same thing to my customer. So the point is, remember, some will, some won't. So what? Don't get caught up in that second half of the bell curve. Okay, so let's talk about the numbers in a little bit of a different way, right? First thing I want you to remember is that cold calling is hardest when you first start. It's just the way it is. Learning to ride a bike is hardest when you first start. Balancing and your shins getting beat up by the pedals, whatever. But pretty soon it starts getting easier and easier, right? Cold calling is the same way for 2 main reasons. First off, when you do cold calls in the beginning, you really haven't done it before. And so you've got a high level of anxiety. And as you do more of these, and I submit you should be doing 25 a day, right? Or 1 hour a day, but you should be doing 25 a day. And when you do 25 of anything a day, a push-up, a phone call, 25 stair climbs or something, it's miserable in the beginning, and then it starts getting easier to do. And then pretty soon you forget about the fact that you're doing it because the effort is in muscle memory, and you're just picking up the phone saying, hey, this is Neil McDonnell. Just trying to see if I could schedule an intro call with you, right? It literally starts getting that easy. And so that's one way it gets easier as you meet more people. The other way is as you meet more people and you schedule more meetings, like the customer I was talking about this morning, part of the reason she's able to get even more meetings now and quicker is because in her intro, she's saying, hey, I'm working here and here, or I'm talking to here and here, or this person here mentioned you, right? She's kind of name dropping. That opens up the door easier. When you first are doing cold calls, you don't have that advantage and you don't need it, right? Everybody has to start at 0. But so just keep in mind though, as you start moving forward, it's going to get easier. And literally in 2 weeks, you could be so far beyond where you are today. If you just called for 10 days, 2 weeks, right? 10 days in a row, 25 people a day, and it can be the same 25 people on a big list that we'll talk about in a second. But if you call them over and over again, you will get comfortable picking up the phone. You will get comfortable hitting the numbers, however we do it today, right? You will get comfortable with that. You will get comfortable leaving your voicemail. You will get comfortable when the other person answers the phone and you say something. You will start looking forward to knocking that particular task out each day, because you know that when you make those cold calls, it's going to lead to the relationships that will lead to the sales that you're looking for. Okay, so again, another thing with the numbers that I want you to pay attention to, we call this targeting. I have a 7-step process that I teach, and step 2 after research is targeting. Targeting is about picking people in a particular agency. You always want to keep it within an agency. I mean, you can create multiple targets as you go along, but you want to keep it within an agency and build a list of 200 people in that agency. This is, for some of you, this might sound overwhelming. It is not hard to do. If you're new to it, all new skills are, hard. But once you start figuring it out, you move forward. And I've got all sorts of training. You can go back and watch the replays of how do I build a list of 200 people. But if I give you a couple of quick examples. The government does industry days. Inside of industry days, or excuse me, like not just industry days about an opportunity, but about their agency. And they'll drop all sorts of people's names in there. You can go into the government's website. You can find org charts. You can find office web pages, program office pages that list out 2 or 3 of the leaders in there. Often, though, you'll see org charts. And if you're lucky, you'll see org charts with names, numbers, and emails. You can go into some places like NIH has a whole, the staff directory of everybody in there. You can go into LinkedIn, right? And you can find, if you go to the tiniest possible program office within an agency, forget about an agency. If you just go down to a program office, you can find 200 people on LinkedIn just by going into the free version of LinkedIn and searching for that agency's company pages and then seeing who's connected to that or who's working for that agency. So there's a lot of ways to do that in LinkedIn. Today's training is not necessarily about that, about the how, but I want you to learn that it begins with you having a list of 200 people. When you have 200 people, you have a big enough pool, that bell curve, that you can ensure that you'll be able to reach people. So I put here that if you reach out to 200 people, if you do cold calling to 200 people, then 32 people are going to get back to you, guaranteed, or your money back, right? Guaranteed 32 people are going to get back to you. That's 16% of the bell curve. And when you reach out to a sufficient amount, right, it has to be 100 or more. You can't reach out to 10 people and go, Neil, 16% didn't get back to me. Well, no, those are the laggards of the 100, right? You always have to reach out to at least 100 to have a fair view of the numbers. You will start figuring out, though, what's your number. I'm saying the minimum that are going to get back to you if you reach out in the right way, and I'll give you some tips on the right way. If you reach out in the right way, then 32 people are going to get back to you for sure. And then the last thing here is follow up on the 168 who didn't respond. So if somebody gets back to you and says, no, that's fine, they're off the list. But if you reach out to 200 people and 32 get back to you, 168 did not get back to you. If they didn't get back to you, that is not a no. You don't say no for the customer. Let the customer say no. I have all sorts of people I'd like to get back to. I was looking at my email today. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't get back to this one or this one. It's their job and mine, but it's their job to get back to me and just bringing it back to the top of the inbox. If I don't want to talk to you, especially just me in particular, I will tell you, hey, this doesn't work for me, right? I mean, I'm not mean. I just go, this is not a fit for me. Thanks for thinking of me or something, right? And so if the government doesn't get back to you, they're still on the list. So those 168, just keep calling them 25 a day. You call 25 a day, you go back to the beginning and call them up again, right? And you can stagger this with emails. I've got a whole separate training on a 30-day follow-up process that maybe somebody will drop into the chat. Otherwise, you can put in the chat 30-day follow-up, and I'll try to make sure people see it. Hey, really quick before I go on and show you exactly how I do kind of cold calls and the templates, I just wanted to say, if you're looking to just really accelerate your skills around business development, which is pretty much cold calling, what we're talking about here, I have a BD masterclass. We have updated for 2024 out on our website. Go check it out, govconchamber.com. This masterclass is everything that I teach people, whether they're brand new or there's 20 years doing business development, on step by step by step. How do you do business development to get in the door, find opportunities, et cetera? We have a ton of people who have taken the course, very happy with it. Love to have you take the course if it makes sense for you. All right, let's talk about the process, how to make cold calls. This part is really important to me as I move forward because you don't want a fancy process. You want a real simple process, because a real simple process, and I don't know why I'm using the word real, but a simple process is easy to follow. And when something's easy to follow, you tend to do it more. So the first thing, this isn't really part of the process for the outgoing, but you want to make sure you have templates and scripts in place. If I'm calling a particular group in the Army or something, then I want to make sure that in my templates or my voicemail scripts that I've tweaked it any way that I want. You'll see in a second on the next slide, I give you samples, but doing any tweaking, do that at the beginning of the process so it's done. I also have a lot of previous training you can look at. Again, go to my LinkedIn profile, right? Connect with me, by the way. I'd love to connect with you. Just say you saw me in training. Connect with me, whether you connect with me or not. On my profile, right at the top, you'll see a featured article for all 400 trainings we've done in the last 2 years. And in there are many, but I've done a couple in the past few weeks about how to send out emails, how to make phone calls, et cetera. So the first step is to make sure you have a script and template in place so that it makes your job easier. Second step in the process is to pick up the phone and start calling people and leaving a voicemail. I always say call and leave a voicemail because 80% of the time or more, no one's going to answer the phone. People still use voicemail though. The government in particular goes in, and so call them. Don't let anybody tell you not to make a phone call. Phone calls are so unique because people don't do them. All of you, perhaps, are more comfortable sending an email than you are picking up the phone and calling, right? Those who pick up the phone and call, in my opinion, have a leg up because now you're doing 2 outreaches, 2 different ways. And so if you happen to get them on the phone, number 2 here, I say call and leave voicemail, but what if they answer the phone? Well, remember, the whole purpose of picking up the phone is to schedule a meeting. You're not calling somebody to have a meeting. And I know I haven't gone into this too much now. You can watch other training I've done. But the whole point of reaching out like this is to schedule a meeting. It's not to have the meeting. A lot of us get caught up in analyzing or researching somebody before you call them. And then they don't answer the phone. And so what I say is don't research anybody. Build your target list. Reach out and say, I'd like to have an introduction meeting. And you'll see this in the next one. I want to schedule an introduction meeting so we can introduce ourselves to each other. That's all I'm prepared to do right now. I know I'm catching you off guard. I'm caught off guard. Let's schedule it for next week. That way I can do my homework and make sure I'm coming fully prepared and I'm going to maximize your time and not waste it. Sound good? Let's schedule a meeting, right? I know I'm going really fast on that, but it literally is supposed to be that easy. Do not let yourself get caught up explaining what your company does because I'm not prepared to have that conversation. I want to make sure I'm communicating stuff that is truly relevant to you and tell you the truth. I was making phone calls because I wasn't sure who I could reach. Sound good? Let's schedule a meeting. Most people are totally okay with that. But just remember for you, the purpose of cold calling is to schedule a meeting, not to have a sale. That's why I said at the beginning, this is not transactional. You're not trying to get them and sell them. You're trying to build a relationship. Once you leave the voicemail, let's say in the morning you should be doing that, then follow up with an email in the afternoon. I like spreading it a couple hours where the email is, hey, I'm just following up to my voicemail. And I'll show you the script in a minute or the template for the email. And then repeat this for 30 days. If you're getting people who aren't getting back to you, just keep following back up. Hey, Neil, I'm bringing the email back to the top of your inbox. I know you're really busy. When you get a chance, I'd love to schedule an intro call. But my last recommendation here on this is just make sure you start with innovators and early adopters when you're doing cold outreach to an agency. And these are the small business professionals, contracting officers, and industry winners. So small businesses in particular, but small and largest who are winning in an agency, calling those people before the program office, those are the innovators and early adopters. If you can get any of these people to make an intro to the program office, that's great. I'm not opposed to calling the program office, but if you haven't got traction in there, it's always better to come in with a friend. You can just take a screenshot because I'm running out of time here. But here's a voicemail script that I use in an email template. The idea of the voicemail template is it's 30 seconds, and I'm just trying to quickly say, here's who I am, here's what I want, right? I'm a government contractor, and I want to have an intro call. I quickly say Microsoft 365 as a way to get them to say yes or no. I want them to go, Microsoft 365, we're an Azure or an AWS shop. No, thanks. It's like, cool, I don't care. I don't care if they say yes or no. I just want to call 100 people, so 16 say yes, right? If you follow that thread. I want the ones who do construction to go, no, Neil, we're the wrong people. Okay, cool. Thanks. Bye. And then in here, you see it says Tuesday, Thursday, 10 a.m. or 2 p.m. When you call the scheduled meetings and you do cold call, always give people 2 days, 2 times that are exactly the same on the same day. It makes it easy for you to remember, and it makes it easy for them to go, I'll take a Thursday at 2 p.m., please, right? Choices are easy for people. And the email template, if you've read it, it's the exact same thing, but very, very concise. The email is not to inform. That's the biggest challenge we sometimes have, is we think that when we send an email, we're informing. When you reach out and you're sending an email, you're just trying to schedule a call based off a meeting based off of that voicemail you left, right? So the whole point of the email is to just get that meeting. Don't put anything more about your company than what your focus is, as a way to get them to go, sure, tell me more. Okay, so here's what I want you to remember and perhaps do coming out of this training, right? The first thing is create a list of 200 people to call. You can do that with all the free tools that are out there. In fact, your Apex accelerators and people like that can help. The second thing is time block or schedule 1 hour a day in the morning and call people. Just pick up the phone and call till the hour is over. Just set the timer and stop as soon as the time's over. If you do that, even if you drag out so it takes 10 calls, it doesn't matter. You will do 11 the next day. You will do 12. You will do 15. You will start getting more comfortable and better at it, but you have to block an hour a day. And the last thing is, remember to follow up with these people who don't get back to you. All of us are like that. We get contacted, and even the people we want to respond to, we don't. So you just keep following up. Hey, I'm very interested in working with your agency. I don't want to be a pest. I just want to kind of come to the top of your inbox. Hey, if you're doing more than $1 million or $2 million and you're interested in working with us, we have a BD accelerator. You can learn more about that on the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. For everybody out there, though, remember, cold calling and government contracting, they're not secrets. They're just processes. I'll see you in the next training.